Hello, I am Muhammad Mboch and you're watching QTV. This is the Viewpoint. Today we're going to talk about women and art. In a range of African societies, women have been recognized for a long time within their communities and by scholars as the creators of pottery and baskets, the designers of dyed and woven textiles, but they're not mentioned as much when it comes to the fine arts, painting, sculpture, drawing, and the like. But it appears that in the world there has been a modern explosion, as it were, of women artists all over the place. And Gambia has been part of this explosion as well. Recently, Key Art Gallery in Carnifing organized a women-only exhibition. And I've got here in the studio today one of the artists who exhibited her work. I've got here Sinabu Balde.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Maybe before we get into, I want to talk about the exhibition, obviously, and your work. Tell us who Sinabu Balde is.
Well, Sinabu Balde is a 26-year-old artist that first exhibited actually when I was in high school. But this was the first time that I went public with it because I felt it was necessary for Gambians to see women do that and to see me as a woman go through loving art over years and coming back to it and just expressing that. So for me, I'm just an individual that loves to show Gambia what Gambia is really capable of, what Gambians are really capable of, what the power we really exude instead of like the scared little timid people that everyone thinks we are. I'm like, no, we're powerful beings that God placed here because only we can do what we can do and only we can handle it. Only we can create as we create. So for me, I think that's what I really stand for. I'm somebody that's just expressing what God already instilled in all of us.
That's it. So you said you first exhibited at high school.
Yes.
I wonder, when did you catch the bug? When did you sort of first realize that you've got something here?
Oh my God. Okay, this is so funny. It's because when I was in 7th grade, I just transferred to school in Weiss at that point. I had an English teacher, funny enough, and I was in my third exam for the third term. Our teacher said, you have to choose different things to do because that's how you get your grade. You know, we have ones that we have to do sit stills. You have to like sit down and draw it. And then he was like, he just added a special portion. It was like, paint anything you want. And I walked up to him, I'm like, I could paint anything I want because to me it was easier because I couldn't draw at that time. So I was like, I didn't want to do that. I was like, I could paint anything. He said, yes. I just remember being in class and I was just like, what do I like the most? And I said stars because I always loved looking at stars with my dad. So I just started painting. I was like, okay, there's a black, there's a blue. And my English...
So no training?
No training at all.
Nothing?
Nothing. It was like, just so...
natural?
Yeah. So my teacher was passing by and he looks at me. Then he goes around and then he comes back and he looks at it. He said, Sainabu, do you know what you have here? I said...
How old were you?
I was about 14. I was like, I don't know. I'm like, it's the stars, but I don't like how the white is looking. And he looks at me, he says, I don't like how the students don't understand how to utilize Facebook. I'm like, what does Facebook have to do with this? He said, because you're really good. And I was like, no, this is horrible. It's gibberish. I'm just trying to pass the grade. My art teacher saw it and was like, this was not what you've been doing for the past 3 semesters. I was like, I didn't know I had this in me.
What did you draw? What was it?
It was just a starry night.
It was just a starry night?
It was just a starry night. I had those, you know, like the typical child work where you have like the big stars there and then you had like your blacks and you're like, your blue is coming in and you're trying to draw a moon but your hand is not stable enough for a circle. And so you're just there like, I don't know what to do with this. But I just distinctively remember my friends fighting for my art paper. My teacher graded it and from that, like everybody in my class was like, I need to have it, I need to have it. And to this day, I still remember the girl that got it for me. Her name was Aisha Tarawale and she just got it. She said, I kept it for years. She called me like 2 years ago. It's like, I still have your work. I was cleaning my room when I saw it. I was like, how do you keep that for so long? She said, it was still beautiful. And now I appreciate those moments. Because I'm like, oh, wow. That was God was like, okay, this is where you need to be at. Focus on this throughout your life. But obviously, as a child, I didn't listen.
Interesting. So just take us from there to the exhibition.
Oh, wow. So from there, I kind of completely switched majors. I went into science. Obviously, I didn't go to arts. So I delayed myself, I thought, but I think everything works in the timing that God entails it. So I went from there and I worked in the parliament for a bit as an internship. I worked with other creatives here. I met new mentors in art like Lai Koka. He's such an underground artist and many people don't know him, but I loved his work because it was so calm. And so I would just work with him when I was younger. And then I would like look into scary art mostly. So like my friends would buy it when we had school events. So I was also a prefect. I was a social welfare prefect. So I was in charge of creating events. So every time we had one at Ibadan Theater, I would take the weird paintings I made for that week. And then I would just take them. And it was my best friend's parents that would always buy them. I was like, why do you keep the scary work? It's like, because that is where you started from. It was dark and it was one of those like you see and you're like, why would somebody paint that? Why? It's scary. Like my friend called me, he's like, I have nightmares when I look at your paintings. But
the gothic.
yeah,
it's
like
it's horror.
It is so gothic, and it's like I would have nightmares when I look, because when I wake up, it's the first thing I see, and I'm like, and I'm like, oh wait, never mind, it's not real. And then from there, I just went to America. I studied arts there, finally. Actually took classes with other artists, and it was such an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything. But then eventually I learned that I was also very much in love with psychology. I'm a big activist for mental health. As someone who's also going through some mental health issues, it was very personal for me. So I was like, I need to learn this because I know a lot of people in my country need this too. And I realized somewhere along the line, art and psychology were merged for me because I knew I could help them using both. So I was like, okay, I'm starting to understand the vision now. So come the exhibition, I came back home a year ago during the trade fair. And then when I just came, I was like, I want to do an art show here because I wanted to build the foundation before I had to travel again to further my education. And I wanted to build foundation. So I worked with psychosocial organizations here like Peace of Mind. And then I met Abdallah at the trade fair.
Conte.
Yeah. And I was like, I remember the week before that I was telling my husband, I was like, I want to do a whole female art show. Gallery here, just Gambian women. I want us to show ourselves. Because there's only Gambian male artists and they all kind of paint the same thing and I don't like that. That's not who we are. We are so imaginative. We're so much more. And I want us to see that. And funny enough, I was like praying to God. I was like, God, just lead me to someone that has to show me that. And funny thing, I was seeing the Keys Art Gallery on my Instagram. I was like, I don't know who owns this gallery, but I'm going to work with them. And I just stuck to that. Abdallah saw me and Abdallah just yelled at me at the trade fair. Zainab, I was like, yes. I was like, Abdallah, because we haven't seen each other in years at this point, like 6, 7 years. He's like, I'm the one that like owns the gallery. I was like, Abdallah, I could cry right now. I said, I'm like, because I've been looking for you. He said, why? I'm like, because I want to have a female art show. My husband is standing there, he's looking at me like, did she just not pray about this like days ago? I was like, I want this to happen. He said, I've been thinking about that for the longest too. So I felt like God had to put two people that wanted the same thing together. He was like, you basically made something I would have delayed for a year or two, you pushed it further. Because when you said it to me, you reaffirmed that it's something that needed to be done. I'm like, when I saw you, you reaffirmed that art was something I needed to continue doing. And so that's how we got to the art gallery. Absolutely. That's how we got to the exhibition. And I met all these amazing, splendid women.
That was where you met others.
That's
other
where
women.
I met
Absolutely.
others that have been in there for so long, and I didn't know about them.
But before then, you had no contacts,
I
links
really
with any
did.
other artists, Gambian artists.
Not really.
Gambian,
I met Aminata Yajo. She's an artist as well here. Yeah. And I met her through the organization I was working with. I'm like, you're an artist? She said, yes. I'm like, you're female? She said, yes. I'm like, how long have you been doing this? She said, a long time. I make murals. I cried when I just hugged her. And from there, it was just like, everything just started falling into place. So when the exhibition came and I met all these women and I saw their work expressed, I remember crying like when I was exhibiting, and then people were just like, oh, we felt that because I was like, I've waited for years to see this for myself. It only took me to do it myself, but I've wanted to see this, and to see this woman just, you could feel the joy in the room of the other artist women seeing their fellow colleague, what they created, and feeling inspired and thrilled. Because now we text each other like, can we collab? When can we do that? Because
I wonder how many women exhibited their work?
about 7 or 8 of us. We had one of them that was missing. I mean, Atayaja, she was in there, unfortunately, but she was in Rwanda at the time, and she was doing other great works there. So it was just beautiful. You met people with different backgrounds, different cultures, all of them exhibiting their women experience in Gambia. And I was so fascinated by that. I was so proud of that. I felt like it was me in each and every one of them, and I think they all felt the same way. They exuded that.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's narrow it a bit further down to your works. How many exhibits did you have?
5.
You had 5.
I was the one person that had the most to exhibit. I actually even finished one of them the day before, which was what everybody found so funny. And I was like, yes, that's how much work went to it. But I exhibited 5 pieces, and they basically, the full totality of it is about divinity, and it's about the power that exists and what combines to make us who we are.
Sort of, let's go through the pieces,
No problem.
as it were, and then you talk us through it.
No problem.
You begin wherever you want.
So the first one is actually the pink one that has the river flowing through it, and it has like what looks like a meadow.
Do you give them names? Titles?
I did a little bit, but it's like the names became more powerful because that one was actually named after the god, the sky of the god. I can't pronounce the name. That's why. So it's like, I remember the definition. It was like, it represents who I am. Because I'm also a god of the sky. Because I'm there. So I gave them their meaning. I didn't give them their names. So that represented the god of the sky. And what that left was, that was the top of your head. That's where exudes your real power, your real connection. Because that's where our solar plexus is. So I'm like, okay, what does that lead to me? I'm like, it's imaginative. That's where creation comes from. So the first one represents creation. It represents the building blocks of creation. When you're walking through that path that you see of purple and white, you're in calm and you're in serenity, but you are creating the simple foundations. And that's what it was supposed to be. It didn't have to be extraordinary or super detailed. It could have rough edges, but it could also flow smoothly like water.
I wonder, how would you describe your art? Is it abstract? Is it symbolic? It seems to use symbolism.
Yes, symbolism is very big for me, but it's mostly abstract landscape.
Abstract landscape.
Yes, that is the title that goes with my style, because it's not something you'll ever see technically, but it's something you kind of wish you saw. So that's what it is. So it's like abstract landscape. That's mostly what I work with. It's more natural to me.
Yes, and it also seems, is your art more towards the aesthetic, much more than political? How does the, or social, if you know what I mean, how does the aesthetic and the political, or social, if you like,
kind of merge into it?
Coalesce.
Okay, so my work, I feel, has to have a combination of everything. Because the aesthetics of it is, I want you to remember your divinity, but you also need to remember your human experience. It's crucial. So having the political aspect of we're being crept in and just locked into a box as our social standards set us up to be. The social standard sets you to be in a box. That's how we're taught. So it's like exploring out of that. So for me, my aesthetic is to explore outside, color outside of the lines.
So were you bringing down divinity to us?
Yes. That's basically it. That is, I love how you put that, because that's really what it is. I was bringing divinity to the human consciousness to make you know it's there. Because when you don't know something is there, you can't see it. You can't acknowledge it. You're not consciously aware of it. You have to see it, visualize it, and then it almost feels tangible. So I wanted to bring divinity down.
That's it.
To make it a human experience.
Take us through the other works.
Yes.
Then bring out the themes, as it were, motifs.
So there goes the first one. So the first one, imagine it just goes on the top of your head. And then we have the one that is called actually Oshun. I remember that because that's the one that has the 3 circles in the middle with the blues and the vibrant greens, but also the deep greens that are there, and the mixture of the blue and the green, and the type of blue I came out of it, and the whites that are there, they all have meaning. Funny enough, my works all have intention. They're all intention based. So I wanted when somebody thought about that, they felt calm with one of themselves, because your femininity and your masculinity, they're not separate from one another. They're basically the same thing. So it's like showing that they just, everything is two sides of the same coin, good and bad.
That binary.
Yes.
But this intention you're talking about, go a bit into that. What do you mean by this intention?
So before I paint, I think about it for a long time. I go through the process of affirming, okay, what do I want my work to do? Who do I want it to go to? And I think that's very important for me, because you have to see it this way. Not, you don't give your child to anyone. You know, you don't let your child be babysat by just anybody. You're careful of who you leave it to. You're careful of how you raise your child. You want to raise them with love and kindness. It's the same way for me and my works. The intention is there, is you're my child. So I will create you in the form that I want my child to be. And that means I have to protect you as well. I need to speak goodness into you, love into you. So when I'm painting, I'm like, okay, I love this blue. It's surrounding, it's calming to me. It flows with me. It reminds me of like water in my blood, just doing its job. And then I'll take a deep breath. And then the intention is, okay, I want you to go to somebody that needs you to be reminded constantly that they are grounded and it's okay where they are.
Quite interesting there, because one of the questions I have here was to ask you about the inspiration. How does it come? Is it spontaneous or deliberative?
Okay, it's actually quite spontaneous.
Yes.
I don't know how, I can never explain it, and this is, my friends feel the same way, because every time they see me with a canvas, they just see me there and I'm just like this. For about 45 minutes, you just see a blank canvas, you just see me like this, and they're like, what are you gonna create? I'm like, I have no clue. I'm waiting for God to talk to me. So I just sit there, and then my head is like, okay, let's choose this color as a foundation and let's keep moving. And by the time I'm done, I'm looking at it and I'm looking at it, and then I'll go to sleep. Within that space of before I get to my REM sleep, my brain has already thought, okay, I now understand what this was meant to be. And that's where I get the concept. The concept comes after it's done. It doesn't come before it's done, because most artists already have it sketched out. They know what to do before. I'm like, I never know. I just sit there and I wait for it to come. And because everything, I think, comes in due time. Everything comes in due process and in due time. And that is very important, because what I thought I was going to exhibit, I came nothing close to it. If I show you the sketches of what I planned to exhibit, you would be like, this is not what came out. And I was like, yes, clearly. But I had one prayer and one intention, which was, God, show me when people needed to see for themselves to remember who they are. That was it.
Earlier on, you said that the men, they all paint the same thing, so in the same way. What do you mean by that? How would you contrast what you do with that word?
It's not me. I don't want them to think this is me like minimizing their work, because I appreciate that art takes a lot of concentration. It takes a lot to even perfect the skill. But they're painting the same thing in a sense. Wherever we work right now, if I was to go to the Bakau craft market and I go to the Senegambia craft market, you're going to see the same works. It's always depicting of the African woman, either in a cylinder figure or with the, you know, she holding her calabash on her head, a child on her, or it's always something about the giraffe here, the lion there, the hut here, the palm tree there. And I'm like, you do remember we have skylines that are just not orange, right? The skylines change. We have cloudless days. We have cloud-filled days. Where are those in your work? I see boats everywhere, men in boats everywhere I go. So it's like, there's always kind of a coherence in how they work. It's always kind of the same mood, because they think that's what works, that's what sells. Because that's what they think of the African experience, and that's what sells for the tourists.
It seems I was exactly going to come to that. Because of the market, we're going to talk about the industry of art later on, but because of their market, they're driven to do stuff like that. Perhaps for tourists, when they come, they will buy souvenirs and take back to their friends.
But for me, as an artist, I'm not there to build your souvenir. I'm there to show you what it's like to be a Gambian. I am showing you the Gambian experience. That is what they're supposed to buy into, because when you come to visit my country, you're supposed to love everything about my country. My art has to differ. You're not supposed to go to Ghana and see the same woman with the calabash and the baby. We're more than that. Our women here run half the businesses in this country, if not more than 80%. They run this country to me. So I'm like, you think all of them are like putting calabash on their head and carrying a child everywhere? No, they have differences with them. Show that, exude that. That is the Gambian. That is the essence of a Gambian. Show what you're proud of being a Gambian. It does not demonetize what those women are doing or how they are, but it says we have to also show the differences. Differences make us better. They're not something we should be scared of. And I think a lot of Gambians are scared of differences and change. So I'm like, don't fear it. Enjoy it and go with the coast of it.
Yes. How can I put it? What would you say is the purposes of your art? Do you think along those lines?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. What are the purposes of your art?
It's to remind you you're powerful. Because like I said earlier, I was someone that dealt with mental health issues. So it made me feel very powerless, like I didn't have a lot under control. And for me, I wanted art to always show that I am very powerful because God thought about me before he made me. I was thought of, you know, I was something that was needed on this planet. That's why I am here. That's why we are all here, because we are needed for this planet. We are needed for its growth. We are needed for its survival. We're needed for its experience. We are needed. And there's so much power there. So when we minimize our power, it's like we're disrespecting God. So I was like, I don't want to do that. That's not how I live.
So this is a kind of individual empowerment.
Yes. You don't need somebody outside to come and tell you, I'm proud of you, you are strong, you have this. No, you need to be like, I am alive today. I woke up, I'm breathing now in this very moment of 2:30 p.m. I have made it. I am breathing. Why? Because God has me here for a reason, and that in itself is power. That in itself is the magical essence of who you are, because you are a God in having a human experience. And those are essential. Enjoy it. It may be painful today, but tomorrow? Oh my God, tomorrow is wonderful.
But how do you see this sort of individual empowerment set against a social, a normative society that's more collective in its conception of things? As I used to say, how I experienced my youth when I was growing up, I thought there are no individuals here, there are only types. You're either a son or nephew or brother or whatever, and then adults everywhere, they can just send you to go and do whatever. They have certain norms,
Yes.
and the highest good is conformity. So this is it. How do you square, as it were, that background of having this collectivist conception of
Ideology.
ourselves and that individual empowerment?
Traveling. I'm not going to, traveling had to be the best thing that happened to me. I will never forget being in my room and being fed up, because I remember feeling like I was suffocating, I was stuck, and I was drowning. I was like, it's because of where I am. They're not allowing me to flourish.
Has that rage ever come out in your art?
Oh, it has. Through the process before I got to where I am now in calm and serenity, like I remember telling people during the exhibition, it's a spiritual experience, because I had to clash. I had to clash a lot, and I had to crash. I had to rebuild myself back up and crash over and over again.
For the individual to emerge.
Because I had to now understand, okay, I traveled and I went to America in a state that I know nobody. That was the first thing I did. My friends were like, you could go to Seattle, you'll meet, my families are there. Or you go to Michigan where you know nobody is cold and you're up north and nobody cares about you, like we'll call you and check up on you. I was like, that sounds like a better option. They're like, why would you go there? And I was like, because I know nobody. That gives me a chance to find who I am without being a daughter, without being a niece, without being like somebody's aunt here, or without being, oh, Swing Sidby.
So you are Seynabou Balde.
I am Seynabou Balde. And who is Seynabou Balde?
Absolutely.
What can I learn about Seynabou Balde? It took 5 years to learn her. It took time to learn her. And during that time, she had to strip a lot of what she knew because it never fit her in the first place. So it was like you start just removing pins out of your body of things you thought were the right thing for you and realizing they were what everybody else wanted of you. And then you have this part of you that's finally saying, yeah, I never wanted that. I wanted this. I wanted to stick with this. I love this. This makes me feel like I am here. This just makes me feel like I'm just working hard for somebody else. I don't want to do that. I want to work hard for myself.
So you had to confront these narratives of womanhood.
Yes. I had to you have to be the respectful daughter that does not speak back or say how she feels. You had to be the woman that had to always cook and feed and take care and take care and take care. We take care of everybody else but ourselves. That's the sad thing. Like, they literally teach you as a young woman to take care of everybody else but yourself.
Woman,
and I'm like,
woman the nurturer.
yeah, woman the nurturer, woman the protector, woman the fixer, woman the feeder. And I'm just like, hold on a second. You think God put me here for all of this only? No, I refuse this. I could not believe that. And I was one of those kids that learned the Quran as a child growing up. My mom was very strict about that. And I know now she thinks like, I can't believe she learned it because I think she took all the wrong parts. I was like, no, I took all the right parts. Because I realized during these lessons, God said I had to be myself. I was meant to respect you, to love you and appreciate you, but not at the cost of self. Because if I am not okay, if I am not happy, if I am not centered, if I'm not good to myself, how can I be good to you? How can I take care of you in a way that is filled with love, with genuine love, and not because I'm obligated to? I didn't want to do things out of obligation. I wanted to do these things out of love, out of kindness, out of because I wanted to. So it brought in a lot of friction in my family, because then I would start to tell my parents, I'm uncomfortable when you do this. I'm uncomfortable when you yell at me because it's unnecessary. I'm right here. Talk to me in a manner that you'd want to be spoken to. And so we had to have those clashes of, the typical Gambian, I'm like, no, I want us to have a conversation where we both are listening to each other. It's important. That's partnership. That's a parent. You have to listen to me as much as I'm listening to you. Because then we can move in understanding, and then our relationship would feel as hectic. And I'll be able to come to you when things are actually difficult and tell you, Mom, Dad, I'm going through this and I need your help.
Listen, then I have to ask you here, I think I can put it this way. What's your relationship, what we call tradition?
Oh, you're coming with the questions today.
From what you've just said there.
Yeah.
So it will be quite interesting to see how you've engaged with this inheritance we call tradition. We've all had to confront this at some point in our
tradition.
lives.
I clash so much with tradition every day of my life because I'm just like, look, I didn't understand it. As a child, I used to tell my mom this, and I was like, I was right when I was younger. Tradition is basically something that our parents passed along for us to improve over time. It didn't say you had to stick to the same thing I taught you 70 years ago or 100 years ago and you keep that same method. I'm like, no, it's meant to change. But we didn't want to change. And I was like, so we just going to act like dogs, like old, you know how they say old dogs don't change?
Yes.
And I'm something like that. I'm like,
yes.
Thank God we're humans. We're capable of change. That would always be my argument. I'm like, thank God we're humans. We're capable of change. So how come these traditions are not changing? They're not evolving. They're like, well, that's called traditions for a reason. I'm like, but tradition is meant to be evolved. It's meant to be better, developed, made better. Are we out here wearing only bralettes and little skirts? No, we're wearing full clothes. Doesn't that tell you there's a change? So for me, tradition and I always clash because there's so many things that I don't agree with that I felt were for that time and was essential for that time to survive. But it's not essential now. Like right now, for instance, I don't believe every woman should learn how to cook before she gets married. That's an example. I'm like, there's YouTube, like, you don't have to kill yourself from when you're 5 to learn how to cook until you're in your 20s before you get married. No, there's YouTube. Pay attention to something else. Learn how to crochet or something. Like, learn how to pave a road. I don't, like, learn something else. You have other things to do. There's YouTube. You can learn, just type in the dish you want. Damada, super, everything is on YouTube. You don't have to bother yourself. Like, people don't want to hear that, but I'm like, that's the place that we're in. I'm like, if I need something now, I don't need to go use mata and kirin all the time. There's gas in the house. It's expensive, but you know, options. I don't have to go through it. I'm sorry. You may not like it, but that's just the situation.
But isn't it curious that, as well, a lot of women out there would look at you and say, oh, she thinks she's white.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
Oh, I'm okay
You know,
with that.
we've got this conception of a kind of essentialized Africanness. This is what we are. And perhaps they will feel rootless without that anchoring. So you are a disruptor. The artist is always a disruptor of society. You're disrupting things.
Should be. That's how it should be. And I like that. I like your question a lot because I may be clashing with tradition, but it doesn't mean I don't love and respect tradition. They don't have to be against each other.
How do you show the respect?
See, one of my paintings, actually, the one that is very out of the galaxy, the one with the sun on the side, there's an old man in a boat right there in the corner and he's floating, but you can hardly see him until you're close. And then I give the explanation. Do you see that he's not burnt? That's why you don't see this yellow hue around him. They're like, yeah. I'm like, because the natural physics and chemistry, with like actual physics will tell you, the closer you are to the sun, you're going to get burnt to crisp. I'm like, but no, he's drawing energy from the sun. That's what his purpose is. So just having that man on a boat was me giving regards to all those that came before me. Because I'm like, they had to flow through experiences. They had to go through things I didn't have to go through because they went through it and they have taught me better. This is that man going on that journey. And so this is me representing that. This is me respecting that, showing you I value that.
And perhaps drawing energy from that, just as
exactly,
the person is drawing.
The
so
image is he's drawing energy from the sun. And I'm like, that is what anchors. We're Africans. We have to be the most proudest of the people on this world. We feed the planet. You know, Africans literally feed the entire world. It's just a fact. It's not something to argue about. People want to argue, but I don't listen to them. And if they think I'm white, that's okay. Because the matter of the fact is, I am white, I am Spanish, I am Africans, I'm a human being on this planet. I am the earth, I am you, you are me. We are one. We're all connected, whether you like it or not. I'm learning.
That's it. and even with me, when I say, sometimes I sit and sort of trying to delineate, sort of identify what it means to be either Gambian or Wolof or African and stuff like that. Because one doesn't want to reify it. In other words, how do I capture something that is constantly moving?
How do you do that?
That's it. Because the whole notion of Africanness, it's really constantly moving. So when I say that I'm an African, there are often so many qualifications in there.
So many. The African is everything.
But this is the key. How do you capture it? You are the artist. You are the ones who sort of try to capture a slice of life. How do you capture the essence of something constantly moving?
By going above it. Because from there, I can observe that it's moving. If I'm standing next to it, I see just go. When I'm standing diagonal, I'm not seeing the full picture. But when I'm above it, I'm seeing the full picture. I see where it's trying to go and where it's been. And that is important, where it's going and where it's been. Because right there in that middle is the real essence of what it is to be African. And that means to be true to who you are.
What an interesting concept of going above it. How do you do that?
Oh, I paint.
The imagination, I
go to the deepest part of myself where I'm very honest with myself. It's where when I'm not where I thought I would be at 26, and I'm like, this is where I'm at now. How do I feel about that? It's when you take those moments to say, okay, I'm not where I thought I would be, but I'm happy where I'm at.
Is this contentment?
Yes, it's going towards contentment. It's gratitude.
Gratitude.
I won't say contentment, it's gratitude.
How, it doesn't matter how little.
How little. I have it. It's given to me. That in itself just shows that I'm still in favor. I'm still loved. I'm still cared for. And that's okay. That's all I need. That's all I need. Because everything else will come when you are grateful with what you have now. You can't keep asking when you're not grateful with what you have. Because then if I give you what you're asking for, you won't be grateful then either. So it's gratitude. Gratitude really is the root and the ground, the foundation. That's what holds you, is that gratitude. Because then, like when I'm looking above, I'm still rooted to the floor, but I have a bigger view now. Because now I'm like this big tree that is just like, okay. And then I go back, and I'm just like, okay, I'm coming back. And then I go back to myself. I'm like, I've seen the bigger picture. Now I'm back. I know now how to express the bigger picture.
Absolutely. This segues wonderfully into my next question. We've been talking about the wider social canvas, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
How can art bring about social change?
One thing about art is it's always perspective based. Isn't that the lovely thing about it? Because the way I see it would be very different from how you see it, how the next person sees it, and that in itself brings change. Because if I stand next to you and I say, I see a fish, and then you stand next to me and say, no, there's a child right here. This is a fetus. Right there, my concept has changed. Because now I'm going to take a step back and I'm like, oh my God, I see that fetus. Can you explain to me what else you see? Curiosity comes, curiosity brews. Curiosity brings change. Because if you want to learn more, it's going to have to force you to change. Because if you know it, you can't ignore it. That's why they say knowledge is powerful. Because if you know it, you cannot ignore it. You cannot
Well,
act.
unless you want to be bloody-minded.
Yeah, you're going to lose your mind. Because your brain will keep telling you, I know this is not what I'm supposed to do.
So, I think what you're saying is that because of the different perspectives, so we almost sort of like create a kind of kaleidoscope, as it were. So that's really what art does, which in a sense also problematizes some of the views that I have about things.
I think it brings forward the things that have always been there. It brings forward.
So that's how you see it. The idea that very democratic. I suppose this is like our moment. It's expressive, reflective of our moment. A more democratic, inclusive, because of the multi-perspectival nature of your. I wouldn't call it enterprise, your art. The enterprise makes it sound so commercial. I think that would have horrified you.
I was like, ooh, not a Fortune 500 artist.
But then where does that leave us? Perhaps the more thoughtful of us, individuals, can change from it. But generally, does it?
I think it does. Because I believe what it does is it lets you know as an individual, you see what you see, and you are right for seeing what you see. But it also means, as a collective, I can listen to somebody else talk and see something differently, and know it's okay for them to see something differently, and make space for them to see something differently, and not demoralize them for seeing something differently. It's accepting other parts of yourself that are ugly as well. Other parts of yourself you don't want to deal with or want others to see. It brings that awareness. So as a collective, if I'm being more aware, now as a collective, I'm inspiring you to look more into yourself. You may not like what you see, but now you're forced to confront it. So that individual aspect of you is now going to start to rise, but it took community for that individual to come out. So that's what it means. It took community.
This is very curious, an old debate here. How do you respond to this? That this view, that was why we call it earlier on the individual empowerment. It's sort of more individualistic. It represents the sort of bourgeois view of art, more elitist. Doesn't really have much to do with the common folk, really.
You know, I get that a lot, actually. I had somebody reach out to me after the exhibition, said, the one thing about your work is, it's like I could walk into them and just keep walking, Like there's no end to it. I go deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's in every piece. So I don't know which one to focus on. And I'm like, that's good. You're not supposed to focus on any of them. You're supposed to just go with where the journey takes you. And that in itself is okay. That in itself is okay. We don't have to be what we are not naturally meant to be, because then we hurt ourselves. Then we clash with self, we clash with community, we clash with our balance. And I think for me, that's something that's very important. I didn't want to clash anymore. I wanted harmony. Harmony was needed. So the common folk, I wanted them to see, you may put me up here, but understand that it's your perspective of you putting me up here. To me, I am getting in the same bus as you are going to Sarakunda. I'm getting in the same taxi, going through the same road, complaining about the same hardships in the market. I am no different from you. I am just you expressed in a different way. I'm not separate from you. That's why I brought up the two sides of the same coin. It's the same coin, it's one. You just think there's two because your mind is telling you there's two. But realistically, it's one. I'm you, you're me. We're just different in the aspect of how I see you and how you see me. Because now they're like, oh, she's bougie now, like, you know, she's out there, she's doing this and that, so she thinks she's up there, she's, you know, got me, the eagle bopam. I'm like, have you actually spoken to me and found me where I'm comfortable? It's completely different personalities. You'll be like, she sounds like me when I'm talking to my mother. I'm like, that's because I am you when I'm talking to your mother. We're having the same experiences. It's just I'm expressing those experiences differently.
Yes.
But it's for common folk. It's for everybody.
Absolutely. We're sort of coming towards the end. You know, here, sort of a lot of people do not buy paintings and stuff. So the general industry, trying to have a career in art, especially if you're a woman, I would like to think that's a sort of, you've got added bonus of issues to deal with. So an artist, art as a career in this country, how do you see it?
It's a very hard career. In the initial interview I made, I told them it's not for the weak, because you realize you're very much passed over, you're overlooked, underestimated. Or your style, they think, oh, it doesn't go with what I think it does. Or they demoralize your price and reduce your price for it. They're like, I don't think it's worth that much. I don't think it's this, I don't think it's that. I already saw another artist by the name of Abdullah or Alaji, and he's doing something like this and it's cheaper. We don't look towards that. Art is an investment. That's what art is, an investment. Because today, what you will buy for $50,000, see today, within the next 5 years is going to worth at least $3.5 million. You're making as much an investment as buying a house. It's an investment. And if we understood that, because the Europeans understand that, the Americans understand that. That's why we have Van Gogh's work still hanging in Paris after this man has been dead for how many years, and they're worth millions and millions of dollars. Why is that? Because somebody added value. And ideally, as a female artist, I know for us, mostly we want to be supported by our people first before we had to venture out. But it's very hard to not venture out before your people accept you.
Absolutely. Isn't it? This is the key. So sort of over there, the culture that really created that industry, that doesn't exist here.
At all. And that's a shame, because it should exist here more. We have so many creatives, men and women and children, that do work that fascinate you, that if a European saw, they would like, they would go sell it for you for millions, but they will never say your name. Isn't that the sad part? They would never say it's from Sainable, a Gambian. No, they would give it another artist name to make it sound more into who they are, or it's James Allen or something, and they just leave it at that, and then they sell it for 3.5 million because they believe if they use a white name, it will make it the price go up because value. We don't value ourselves. That's what I understood it as. If you value yourself, you value your art because you're valuing your creative side. That is a part of you. It's an essential part of you as a human being. So for me, I wanted Gambians to understand it's an investment. Because what I'm telling you today is basically like buying stocks. It's like opening a business. You buy the work today, I am guaranteeing you in the next 5 years, the price will go up. My friends, I made this joke on Snapchat and I was like, catch me while I'm cheap, because when I'm expensive, you'll be very upset. Because I tell them like...
And then you never really know what's going to hit.
Exactly. You really never know. And so if you are not capturing when the opportunity presents itself, whose loss do you think it is? It's not the artist, because the artist is going to sell their work. They're going to get in what they've put out. But you're going to look at it and say, I remember when this was just like 18,000 and I had like 75 in the bank, I could have bought this and I would have made at least $500,000. And now that I sell it, look at this person. She's in America right now selling this for $38,000. Imagine that. You just sit down and you're like, I thought about buying this. Like, I thought about buying it. Just think with that thought. I thought about buying it. No, it should have been, I bought it. Look at me now. I'm about to sell this next year because it's going to get higher. Because somebody smart will see an opportunity. You know, like they say, that like opportunity comes to all, but not everybody grasp is an opportunity. So I feel like right now, with all the works in the gallery currently, it's an opportunity for Gambians to invest in themselves. You're not investing in the artist, you're investing in yourself, because the artist will still grow. The artist will still persevere, because that's the intention behind our work. We're gonna grow. But you as an individual, this might be the best investment you make in your life. I'm just saying, it might be the best investment you make in your life.
Absolutely. There was one question actually I wanted to ask you earlier. I think it'll be interesting to hear your view on this. Okay. Would you describe yourself as a feminist?
I'm laughing because I have this clash every time with people. Because I'm like, I think people think feminism means something completely different than it actually is. They think it's against men, or you hate men, and you're just trying to pulverize them. I'm like, actually, no. It's just basically us saying, I don't want to be fully equal. I just want to be treated the same in the manner of how I'm being paid for the work I do. Because if you want to have the same bachelor's degree...
But that's interesting. I don't want to be fully equal.
Because we're not equal. Men and women are never meant to be equal. I'm very big on that. I'm like, I understand how you guys want equality, and I love that for you, but we're not equal in any spectrum.
So how do we draw the proportions?
See,
as it were.
He said, "What would be the like who be talking about?"
Yeah.
Nah.
So, but this is the key. Once we sort of calibrate, we start using such words that we are not scaling, that we are not quite equal, then it suggests sort of imbalance between things.
I know what I was saying was about to be controversial, but I'm going to still say it. See, I think of it like this. You see all fingers that we have? No, one of them is in the same length. Maybe this two, and that's even by a smidge difference, because this one is shorter. But does it make this finger any less good at this work than this finger? No, they have to work together for it to grasp, to hold this bottle. Because I can't hold this bottle with just, the finger alone, because I need the thumb even. I can't do that. It's the same way when it comes to men and women. I can't do it by myself just because I'm a woman. I need my male counterpart, because this person has something I don't have. Maybe they're more logical than me. I'm more idealistic. That's where it works, because I might come with an imaginative thing that he can see and make it into a Fortune 500 business, because he has that logical aspect.
This is very interesting. Here, I'm thinking of Senghor. or people didn't like him when he said this. He said, reason is European, sentiment, feeling is African. Are you telling me that reason is male? And the more creative and everything else as female. Is that your formula?
Something like that. I wouldn't say per se, because there are very creative men I've met in this life. And there's so many logical women I've met in this life as well. So I just feel like it depends on the individual. Because we're not built the same. We don't have the same purpose on this planet, you know? So like, how do you want me to tell you we're going to be equal? Where? Because I am feeding into a part of you that's missing, and you are feeding into a part of me that's missing.
That's it. So I've heard some feminists say, we are equal but different.
See, I like that better. I like that better. I like that. We can be equal and different.
But different.
Yes.
I mean, in our humanity, we are equal.
Yes.
That there can never be anything like that. The differences emerge only historically.
Oh, yes. When things start to become patriarchal, and this is a conversation for a long time. Because when the patriarchy gets involved, it's just a mess. But I think balance is very important, because it takes a man and a woman to make a child. It takes pollen, you know, like feminine tree, for its pollen to move to the male, for it to bear fruit. We need each other. We're not one against the other. No, we need to come as a collaborative, as a team. And that's what I think real feminism is understanding how to come as a team. Saying, you know, me and you studied the same thing. We've been in the field for the same time, and you're getting paid maybe $500,000 a year. I deserve to be paid the same. Because we're doing the same amount of work. We've gone through the same thing. I deserve that. That's what that is. But it's not saying, okay, so when we get to the house, the woman is going to do all the cooking and taking care of the kids, and you do all the work. No, it means we trade sometimes. Sometimes I'm the one that's working late, and you're the one in the house with the kids because you have to make the meals. And I come and I rely on you. And another day you rely on me. It's like taking shifts in a job, but the job is being a human being. And we do that. So I like that one. We're equal, but we're still different.
It's still different.
But when you say that, you're kind of still saying we're not really equal, are we? You know?
It's all a matter of perspective, I suppose.
Exactly. Like art, sir, like art.
We're coming towards the end. Art itself, it's quite bizarre. I've been to a few exhibitions. How should one really analyze it? When I'm faced with a work of art, what's there to look out for? I've met a lot of people around. They don't go. A lot of people really do not go to exhibitions. I'm not sure now what's going on with the
no, we
key
had a great
art.
turnout with the key art gallery. But then again, we all were like promoting it videously. I was telling people, if you do not come to this, I feel
was
bad
an
for you.
event, wasn't it?
Yeah,
people like
you're
events.
missing out on an experience to find yourself. That's how I saw it.
When I look at art, how
should I look at it?
How should I look at it? Of course, the individual will come in, but there are certain objective things. There are certain things that the artist is doing.
Yeah.
In every art, there is artifice. That's something that you do.
And they're trying to draw your focus.
Trying to draw my focus. That's it. Especially with your work.
There's this blue piece. Hopefully you guys can show it. There's this blue piece in the mountain, and it has like an eye on the corner. Since before the keys, my little brother was the first one that told me it looked like it's a portal, and I just want one person coming in and another coming out. It's like God giving birth to us, and it's like he's making us in a factory, and this is how we come out. That's what he saw. My mom was like, it was just the eye on a mountain. He used to share this. My colleagues, when they saw it when it was done, everybody just paused. They were like, this was the most beautiful thing I've seen. I'm like, why? They say because it's almost look like the sun is setting, but it's completely white. But the mountain makes me feel like I'm rooted and I'm grounded. But it's so serene and calm. I don't understand. I just love the color. Because I only use maybe 2 colors, which is blue and white. And everyone was just like, why is this captivating me? I'm like, because of simplicity. And because when I was making it, I made sure it was so bright in the middle that that's where your focus would initially go. Because when you work through the keys, the first thing on you see is that. The turn, and you're just like, oh, this is intense. You have that moment where it's like, I did not expect to see this.
The element of surprise.
The element of surprise. And that was important for me to give the person viewing my work. I'm like, I want you to be surprised. I want you to be shocked when you see this. Because you're like, I've never seen this a day in my life. How did she get this? I've never thought about this. Like, it's so out of the blue. What is this? It's so different. Where will I walk in Gambia and see an artist draw that? That is not in a frame or something I've seen on TV. How did she get that? Like, now you're questioning. And isn't it beautiful when you start questioning because you finally get to get answers? I was like, I wanted you to focus on that because that was essential. But look how you focused on the stars above it. They weren't many, but they were small. You looked at it, you're like, why is that there? You looked at the gold string that just went and you felt, why did she add gold? I just like the black and white. But then you realize the gold complemented everything and it brought it together. There's harmony. You saw harmony. And then you're enticed by that harmony. Like, I want to see more harmony somewhere else. So you start walking to the other pieces, and that's what it does. My black and white central piece is actually the mother of the paintings. She's called Divinity. She is the full grasp of the human being. My friend saw it as like, that's a fish. Because if you look at it, there's actually what looks like a fish. I'm a Pisces. Our symbol is two fish. I didn't intentionally do that. But if you look at it when you stand and feel feedback, it's a fetus. And somebody said to me, it's like I'm seeing what you're saying. There's two sides to everything. It's the good, which is the white, and the bad, which is the black. But they intertwine and they make this beautiful gray, and that fetus absorbs it all. I'm like, yes.
That's the power of art.
That is the power of art.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm saying
Thank you so much for having me.
To the end of this program. What a fantastic conversation that just had.
Likewise,
stimulating.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming. And I recommend anyone to still go to the Keys Art Gallery. We're still showing and will be for the next 3 weeks. And please buy the pieces. They're very affordable.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to our viewers for joining us on the Viewpoint. Until next time, I'm Mudumbush. Goodbye.